Hello, Year 10. Just a bit of feedback from last week. You've all got your individual comments, but just a few things as a class as well. Hopefully you'll find them useful. Please share your feedback in the teams once you finish watching. Okay, this was one of the questions from last lesson. Why would someone confess to a crime even if they didn't do it, like Zinoviev and Kamenev, they hadn't murdered Kirov? These were some of your responses. Thought they were all very interesting. You could pause the video now and have a think about which one do you think is the most accurate. Well, Adam, I think you're about right. They kind of hope for a reduced sentence. Maybe if they've been very optimistic, although in reality, I think they probably knew what was coming to them. Alyazi, were they covering up for someone else? I don't think they would have confessed to a crime knowing the severity of the consequences just to protect someone else. So that one wasn't particularly accurate, but it doesn't matter. Faisal, to overwhelm the government with confessions. That again is quite an interesting idea, but it's not that, especially given the consequences that were going to come their way. Maxime, someone might feel it's their fault, even emotionally. So even if they didn't do it, you might think, well, we had some responsibility in that. That's an interesting response, but again, it isn't that. I think Zayed had the best answer here. They were definitely threatened, and we know as well with some of the other party leaders that their families were threatened as well. So it was a big reason why someone might actually confess to something that they haven't done, is because they're tortured or threatened with something that might happen to them or their families. Okay, here's some of the feedback from just a few questions. Who was the head of the secret police in 1934? A lot of us said Yezhov. Now, Yezhov is the name that we think of with the purges, but he didn't actually become head of the secret police, the NKVD, until 1936. All right, so the first person was called Yagoda. Another question, why did the secret police send over 1 million Soviet citizens to the gulags? Again, half of us got this right. The idea was that they just had these quotas to fill. They were told by the by Moscow, you must find thousands of people from this particular town or village, and it was all very specific. Half of you put that Stalin knew a lot of people personally who had committed these crimes, and the truth is he just didn't. He took an interest in what was happening, but they used a quota system because it was about spreading fear across the population, and he just demanded that so many people would be punished. True or false? Ravens used violence and torture to force people to confess to crimes they hadn't committed. I wanted to include this because you all got it right. It was probably the only question that everyone got right, but it obviously stands out. All right, this was the NKVD who were nicknamed the Ravens when they were going around people's houses and arresting them very late at night. So well done. I was very happy in general with your work, and just make sure that when you're doing these questions, you're taking the time to think about them properly, even if it's just multiple choice. All right, one of the questions, explain the Great Famine in 10 bullet points. This was one of the answers. I'm not going to say who it was, Adam, because that would be embarrassing. This was Googled, and it was about the Irish potato famine. So I think the lesson here is do not just Google an answer. It wasn't the only time it happened. Some people were Googling definitions. I would much rather you use your own words. And in this instance, we were way off the mark. Here's another example of an answer that I thought was much better. Loads of facts. Now I've put the bullet points in myself, but you can see here there are a range of ideas, from people starving to what they were forced to eat, to the impact on the people not being allowed to leave the region. So a range of ideas is what we're looking for at the high end. So really good work, even the Microsoft Office quiz. All right, and really another good answer, which I liked, was I think it was Sarah's. What was the aim of collectivization? And again, it's because it's quite a complex explanation. So I've highlighted here all the ideas that are in there. The goal of it was forcing them to join these farms. What else have we got? It was to modernize the Soviet Union, making sure there's enough food for towns and cities, and they were selling it to other countries in order to buy new equipment. Brilliant. Not just a simple answer, all quite complex. That's aiming at the higher levels for IGCSE. What was grain procurement? Again, I like this one because it had lots of good ideas, even just in a simple answer. So it's to feed the urban workers. Why? Because the peasants reduced their production, because they weren't being paid enough, and the government was therefore forcibly taking the grain. So that is a really, really complex answer. And it might not have lots of statistics in, for example, but it does show a good depth of understanding. Okay, why do you think the 5-year plans were a success or a failure? I've got a feeling this could be from Andrews, and he wasn't the only one, but the best thing about this was that it did exactly what the question asked. There was a verdict, it was a success, and then there's a justification. So he gives these examples about the fact that it helped rapidly industrialize the Soviet Union. There's the idea with the example of the White Sea Canal. Really simple, but it does exactly what the question was asking. Your final thoughts on lesson, I just want you to know that they're being listened to and they're going to be applied. So one person just put a question at the end, like what were the kulaks? That's really good in the sense that if you're not sure of that, then it's important that you communicate it. So the kulaks were the wealthy peasant farmers who were targeted during collectivization because they were seen to not fit into the communist model where Stalin was forcing everyone to work on collective farms or state-owned farms, the Sovkhozy. The kulaks they just didn't fit into that model. They were wealthy or kind of reasonably wealthy. They were had quite a lot of property, and that just didn't fit into the communist model. So they were targeted in particular, and 2 million of them were deported to gulags. Someone's put it's confusing what to do, so hopefully that gets better. Someone's put maybe less work because there wasn't enough time to finish everything. So again, that's something that we're going to try and get the balance of. Hopefully this afternoon's lesson will be a bit more straightforward. Someone's put, can you put all the files onto the Microsoft Team like file section? I haven't done it right this second, but I will, and that's a really practical thing that we can do. And then someone's put, if you make a video on the lesson, things will be clearer. We've done that now, so hopefully if we continue like that, you feel like you can follow and understand exactly what you're doing. Keep up the really, really good work, and I look forward to being in touch during that lesson.